All right, so what I'm going to explain next, we're going to go through a couple of models. You know how I was talking about these pathways that we go through in business and personal? So let's have a look at them so that you can start to understand where you might fit into that. So really get practical. Does that sound good? Yep? Okay. So let's start with the business journey. Now, as I go through this journey, each of you will identify where you've been, where you're at, and perhaps what the next phase of growth for your business is going to be, okay? Every business that I certainly have come across has followed this path. So knowing that there's a path to business growth gives you, in effect, a pathway, some stepping stones that you can predict of what the next focus of your business is going to be. So do you sometimes sit there and think, oh, what are the next steps that I need to take? What should I be doing? What shouldn't I be doing? What do I say yes to? What do I say no to? Does anyone have that sometimes going through their head, yeah? Well, this is going to help you identify what do you say yes to? What should be the priority for your business? Where should you be spending the money? And what should you be delaying for a future point? Cool? Okay, so every business starts off in the birthplace. So this is the idea of a business. So not a lot is happening at the moment, right? So it's just the idea of a business and you're just doing the bare minimum to kind of see if it's going to float. So was everybody there at some point? Yeah, you kind of went, oh, that's an idea. I wonder if that could be a business. Yeah? So we all started there. The main priority at this point is just simply working to meet your own needs. So whether you went into business to get out of a corporate career, who was in corporate before and then wanted to work for themselves? Yeah, cool. Whether you thought this is how my family has always done business, so I need to start my own business because that's what my family has always done. Who got into business for that reason? Yeah. Who got into, just kind of found themselves in business, just was doing something and they went, oh my God, there's a business here. How did that happen? Yeah? Very cool. So each of you have a reason as to why you started out and how you found yourself in business, okay? And when you're starting out, it's purely to meet your own needs. So you're wanting to generate, at the very basic, sell something to get money to pay for some bills. Cool? Now, as that business grows, you start to move into what's called infancy. So now you're starting to think, well, I'm going to put my business hat on now. So I'm actually going to start to look at cash flow. I'm going to start to look at production. So in order for me to be in business, there's an exchange of money. So there's money coming in and there's money going out on production. So at the infancy stage, you're not really concerned with a lot of detailed marketing, a lot of creative sales strategies. You're just looking for, what do I need to do to generate the money, to get money coming in, to pay for the stuff that people have bought, to pay for production, to cover those costs so that the money's coming in and the money's going out. So do you remember a time in your business where you felt like you were just like a gateway for money? It was like it's coming in and going out as fast as you could. As fast as it was coming in, it was going out. Perhaps you had even spent it before it had even come in because you'd made commitment to orders and things like that, okay? So at this phase, at infancy, cash flow is a problem. Sometimes it's flowing, sometimes it's stuck, sometimes it's not flowing and you've overcommitted. So cash flow is a key concern. Does everyone remember that time in your business? From there, you start to think, and logically so, as this business is growing, I need to get some more people, I need some help. However that help looks like, whether it's through contractors doing, odd jobs here and there, or whether it's through hiring, a personal assistant, or, as I was speaking before, getting someone in to take care of some of the admin work that you're doing to free you up to be able to go and do something else. So you've identified a way in which people can come in to help you out, to free up your time. So it's a bit of a catch-22, isn't it? Because when people come in, it's another cost to your business. So your revenues now need to keep growing in order to pay for the costs. So cash flow is still a problem because you haven't necessarily done more to address the cash flow problem. You've added more cost to your business. Yep, so money's still tight. Familiar with that? At this toddler phase, you don't really have a lot of systems. And nor should you. Now please understand this. You don't have a lot of systems and nor should you. You have enough for your business to keep turning over, for it to function. But the moment you try and invest in a complex system, it's the moment that you've overcapitalized on an investment that your business can't handle at that point. And the reason why I can't handle it is because you haven't had enough yards in your business yet to know the challenges that it's going to face. So let me make this, let me give you an example around this. Let's take returns, right? So your customers will purchase something from you. Some of them may want to return it. True? For whatever reason. Let's not care about the reason for now. But the bottom line is that there's an exchange, something goes wrong with the exchange and they want a refund or they want a return or something like that. Now, the first person comes through and you deal with the return or the exchange the first time. And you think, okay, that's how I will process it. They're the steps that I'm going to follow to enact that transaction. Second person comes along and you're like, oh, yep, they're the same. I can follow the same steps. Third person comes along. Oh, hang on, they're a bit different. That's a bit new. They want something else in there as well. They want me to include something else in this process. Okay, so now I need to change the process. Someone else comes along, different needs, change the process again. So do you remember a time in your business where just when you thought you had something sorted and you knew what you were doing, you didn't? Yeah? That it's constantly changing. So just when you think you're familiar with how your business is operating, you think you've got a process that's working, that fits for most people, you're going to come across a situation where it doesn't quite resonate. So you have to change your processes again. So a lot of times in businesses starting out, particularly at that phase, you're redefining your processes, rewriting your processes and your systems in order to keep up with how your business is changing and the ways in which you need to engage with your customers. Does that make sense? So then why would you invest in a really complex program where you don't know how to configure it? So a simple one would be, let's look at like a CRM system. There are really complex CRMs, customer relationship management systems out there that can track each time people interact with your website. You can automate emails, you can track whether they open them, you can track whether they go to your website from there, open attachments, send postcards, send emails, capture all their sales in there against it, right? These things could make a cake. You'd swear they've got functionality in there that you press a few buttons and out pops a chocolate cake, which would be ideal because I do like a bit of chocolate cake. But there's so much complexity in there that if you don't know all the elements of your business and how it's going to function, you end up spending a lot of time trying to configure a system that's too complex for where your business is at. Okay? So when you're hearing of people, providing solutions for, well, you're in business, you should have this system, you should be doing this system, you should implement this, you should be doing this process, just ask yourself, where am I? Is it an ideal time for me to do right now? Or should I be aware that it's something that I should do? So how do I think about what I'm doing now to prepare for it? Do you see the difference? Because what's one of your most precious commodities that you've got? Time. So would you be, at this point in business, would you rather be spending your time configuring a system that you're not even too sure that's going to add a lot of value for your business, or getting out there and generating more revenue? Getting out there and generating more revenue, right? So this helps you figure out what should I be doing and when. Management at this point is through crisis. So this is where the bushfires happen. You don't know what to expect. So any challenge that happens, you're kind of navigating through those waters for the first time. So it's a bit of management by crisis. You're learning, the team's learning, you're trying to figure it out as you go along. Does anyone remember that time in their business? Maybe that's where you're at now. Yeah? As we start hiring more people and we start focusing on cash flow and generating revenues, we move into the teenager phase. Now, this is a really cool part of business. This is where everybody wants to be in business, where revenues are just flowing in. Like you paddle, the analogy of the duck that looks nice and serene but underwater is paddling furiously? That's this phase. So you've got lots of activity, lots of revenue coming in, lots of sales, and you're thinking, it's Christmas. It is Christmas right now. This is the place where I want to be. I'm not feeling as much pain because I've got plenty of money coming in the door to pay for the bills and then some. Has anyone been at that phase? Yeah? Maybe some of you are in that now and you're thinking that it's Christmas. Awesome. It's also one of the best points to sell your business, in case you were wondering. Your business is now gaining a lot of momentum. It's a lot of sales, and with sales come more people, not just team, but customers. So customers are now talking about you. They're referring people to you, hopefully. They're saying positive things about you, hopefully. And there's a lot more momentum in the market. So when you get to this point, you start to realize, hang on a minute, in order for this to be sustainable, I need to do what? What do you think comes next? Even though it's written there, just have a think. Systems. You start to think, okay, now how do I put some systems and structure and processes around what we do so that we can generate some consistent results, some consistent and replicable results? So this is where you'll start to say things in your business like, I don't care that you want to do it differently. I just want you to do it this way. Just execute it this way, follow these steps, follow this system, follow this process, because that's what works to get the result. Let's just do it consistently for a while, and then let's look at innovating. But you can't innovate before you've put the structure in. If you don't have the structure and the systems, you're doing shiny ball syndrome. Anyone familiar with shiny ball? Anyone done that in their business? We've all done it at some point, yeah? This looks like a good idea, I'm just going to go and do this. Oh, no, this looks like a good idea, I'm going to go and do this. And nothing gets solidified in your business. There's structures and processes and systems that get left behind. Now, putting structures and systems in place take what? Time. So when you're in business, time is your most precious commodity, so it's the thing that you have least of, true? So it's the last thing that you want to be doing with that time, this is how people think, is to sit there and write, well, when this happens, I do this step, and then I go into this system, I put this data in, and then it spits out this report, and then this report gets filed here, and then, it's just, who gets excited by that? There are people that get excited by that. Is there anyone in the room that gets, there you go. There are people that do, they love it, right? And as part of, when I was a consultant, I used to go into businesses, and that would be all I would do. It'd be, hi, how you going? Let's talk about X process. Okay, so what's the very first thing that happens? Okay, now if that doesn't happen, is there a decision point around there? What's the decision that needs to be made? If yes, what happens? If no, what happens? Right, let's just go down the yes path. So yes, so what button do they click? They click this button. Cool, what screen does that open? It presents this screen. What field do they go to first? Do you know? Seriously? I could not do that now. I don't know why I did it then, but I just could not do it now. But that's the level of process that you need to think about. Now think about why. Why is it important to do that? For consistency, from who? From your team. Because up until this point, who's been doing most of it? You have. So the process sits where? In your head. Now we were having this really cool chat last night, I think it was, around ownership in a business. Now if you're the owner of your business, are you thinking about somebody else's business? Or are you thinking predominantly about yours? Think about competition. Do you put a lot of time and effort into how your business is going to operate, your products, your services, how to manage your team? Does it keep you awake at night? If something goes wrong in the business, whose bank account does it hit? Yours, right? So the more you hire other people in, if you have an expectation that you want them to think about your business the way that you do, you can see where there's going to be a bit of a conflict. Now, I worked with a leadership team, did this really cool activity. It tended to be a bit challenging. The business was going through just a bit of a slump. So every month it was losing $40,000. So the $40,000 had to come from somewhere. So where was it going to come from? Where? The owner's back pocket. The bank of, let's call him Barney, the Bank of Barney, right? So the bank, every month the Bank of Barney would open up and out would go $40,000. Now the owner was getting a bit frustrated, understandably, because the Bank of Barney isn't an infinite bank, right? It's got a limit to how much money was in there. But his management team didn't seem to understand the urgency around needing to lift performance. And he came to me and he said, I really need some help with getting my team to develop that business mindset, that business owner mindset. And I said, well, first of all, let's agree that that's not going to happen. And he's like, what? And I said, well, unless they're actually going to be running the business, they're not going to have the business owner mindset. He said, what do you mean? I said, well, you're the one that stays awake at night. You're the one whose back pocketed hits. So if they're not staying awake at night worrying about the same things that you're worrying about, if they're not worrying about how they're going to pay wages and what's going to happen to the families and children and blah, blah, blah of people that are working there, and if their bank accounts aren't being impacted in any way, how exactly do you want this to happen? So, but we'll give it a go. So we sat around the table and we talked around the challenge. So we spoke about the elephant in the room. We said, okay, so who in this team has not recognised yet that there's $40,000 going out the door every month? They all went, no, we all have. Right. And have you all come up with ideas and solutions for how to fix it? Yep. Have some worked? Yep. Some haven't? Right. So where do you think we should go from here? And there was dead silence. And I said, okay, well, let's try something different. Every month when the $40,000 comes out, where does it come from? And they all said, well, and they pointed to him, they said, from his pocket. Cool. And I said, it's amazing how flippant you can say that. $40,000 is just cascading out of, his pocket. I said, so here's what we're going to do. And I made it sound as if the decision had already been made. I said, here's what we're going to do. Seeing as a leadership team you failed to take action and solve the problem, the owner has now decided that this is what's happening. So what's happening is the $40,000, whatever the loss is per month, there's 6 of you around the table, that's going to be divided by 7, including the owner, and you're all going to share in that loss. And there was stunned silence, like everyone, it was like there was no oxygen in the room. They just kind of went, talk about an undie tightening moment. I think that all snapped off them. That was, And they went, oh, you can't do that. And I said, well, actually, technically he can, because it's his business. Now, the question that I wanted to ask you was, how long can you sustain that? So how long can you have $10,000, let's just say, just coming out of your bank account? How long can you sustain that for? Some of them said, oh, maybe 3 months, and then I'm in trouble. I said, okay. Someone else said, I probably wouldn't even be able to do it for the first month. I said, right. So how differently would you start to solve the problem in the business if you knew that it was going to actually impact your back pocket? And they started to change their thinking. That was the only way they could get an inkling of it. At the end of the day, that wasn't going to happen. He couldn't take the money out of their account because of contracts that were in place and all the rest of it, right? So they never really felt the impact. And because they can't feel the impact, they're never going to develop that business owner mindset. Do you get that? So when you have an expectation of your team, particularly when you start appointing, general managers in your team or CEOs to lead it so that you can take a step back, just be mindful that if you've got an expectation that they're going to, love it like it's theirs and treat it like it's their own business, they have to feel a financial impact. Because if they're not feeling a financial impact, they're never going to take that on, okay? How did I get onto that? I was. I'm just going through my head going, how did that actually fit in? I'm sure it made sense. Just watch the recording again and go, oh, that's how that made sense. So your business is gaining momentum, you're putting more people in, you go into the young adult phase, which is very structured. So this is now process system oriented. You start to get smart about your business. You start to anticipate the future. So you've been around long enough to know that if X, Y, and Z happens in the business, this is what we need to do. So you can anticipate the future. Does anyone feel that you can be anticipatory in your business? You know kind of what's coming and you can position your business for it. Anyone? Couple? Yep. Fantastic. Do you have systems in your business? Is it fairly ordered, fairly structured? So could I come into a role and know what to do? Yeah, okay, so maybe you're still in there, right? But that's the question. Could I come into your business, flip through a manual, get some induction, get some training, and then go, cool, I now know what to do. I now know what buttons to click, what systems to operate, how to pick up the phone, how to speak on it, what the products and services are actually about, the prices of them, the return policies, all of that. That's all of the structure and system that you're building at this point. Okay? This is where you also start to put in management structure. So you start to delegate a lot more. So you have people that are put into hierarchy. So does anyone have an org chart for their business? An organisational chart, Randall does? Yep. Does anyone even know what I'm talking about? Is anyone going, what is an org chart? Yeah, like this role reports into this person reports into this person, yeah? So this is where an org chart becomes critical, because you're putting in lines of command, you're putting in roles and responsibilities, delegation, and more importantly, you're putting in who can make a decision on what. So who can make a decision around certain, the bigger the business, the more they have these in place to say at this role you can make a decision around X amount of money, at this role you can't, right? So there's a whole heap of responsibility that comes with your position in the hierarchy. True? So if you haven't got one and you're at this phase, you might want to look at creating that, because that's going to tell people how to relate to one another, how to connect with one another, who to go to get a decision made, what they're responsible for, what they're not. Might sound like I'm telling you to suck eggs, but if you do that earlier on, you're going to be reinventing this org chart, because people are going to be coming in and out of your business, and they should be. So think about a CEO. Who's watched has anyone ever been part of or observed a large corporate like a BHP Billiton or a bank or something like that? Yep. And you've noticed that the CEOs come in for a season. Has anyone watched the pattern of a CEO? Yes or no, guys? No? Some of you have. So a CEO will come in. So that when a big business is appointing a CEO, they always look at where is the business at, where is it going, and therefore what leadership style, what kind of leader do we need to take it there? So they hire the CEO that has that leadership style to take the business there. Once they've fulfilled on that, which is about 4 years, that CEO moves on. Thank you very much, see you later, go do that in a different business, time to appoint the next leader to take the business through the next phase of growth, okay? If that's true for a big business, it's also true for your business. So you need to be clear, and this is where Randall's very strong in what I've heard him speak about, is about knowing who he needs in what positions and where they fit on the bus, how to move them around the bus, and when they're actually no longer required to be on the bus. So the best gift that you can actually give someone in your team is helping them identify when they shouldn't actually be on your bus anymore. Thank you so much for your contribution. You've been absolutely fantastic. The business is going here. You're here, we actually need to free you up to go and add value the way that you have for us to another business. It's a really nice way of saying it. But it's actually really respectful of them and their development if they're not going to come on that next phase of the journey with you, okay? So as you start to move up from young adult up, you're making these decisions around your people based with where the business is going and who's going to be a great fit for it. Now, around young adult, between young adult and the zone of maximisation is again an ultimate selling point. Okay, so one was around teenager, and you've proven that the product or service that you're offering is great in the market, there's lots of traction around it, lots of interest, so it's attractive for someone to then pick up, put some structure around and grow it. Okay? Similarly, the next point is between young adult and zone of maximisation, where it's been proven. We've got a lot of structures, we've got a lot of systems, we've got a lot of replicability in how we get a result, but we've stagnated. So we don't know how to grow it, we don't know how to innovate it, we don't know how to expand it, but we can generate a great result, okay? Now, stagnation in business is not a good thing. It's actually death. It looks okay because you're going straight across, but with market growth and everything growing, that straight line is actually a dip. So stagnation is actually the beginnings of the death. So that your business then becomes really attractive to someone who can say, I can take that and expand off that and build that even further. So they're the 2 points. In the zone of maximisation, this is the pinnacle. This is why you got into business. So why did you get into business? To make money for the lifestyle that you wanted? Are you not clear on why you got into business? To make money and, yeah, okay. To have the lifestyle that you wanted. So the time on your terms, life on your terms, to flexibility, so that you choose where you want to spend your time and you've got the money for the lifestyle that you want. Yeah? Self-fulfillment. Great. Making a change to self and others. Isn't it a bugger that in order to get to that point, you had to go through all this pain? If you knew this prior to going into business, would you have gone into business? Some of you would say yes, some of you would say probably not. Some of you would say might get different help. But in order to get to that point, the zone of maximization where everyone wants to be, where you've got great money coming in, you can tell the difference between your revenues and your profits, you've got structure in there, so you've got control, yet you also have flexibility, and you've got a lot of growth and innovation going. So it's fun times in the business as well. And you've got hierarchies in place, you've got people there that can take on some responsibility, delegate, blah, 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 so you can take the foot off a little bit. Great point in time to be in business, true? You just need to go through all those other phases to get there. You can't jump in there. What do you guys think? Does it sound logical to you? Have each of you been able to identify where you think you might be? So what you're going to do now, before we go into the people side of it, I want you to turn over the page to page 36, I think, and just answer those questions that are on there. It's just a simple and quick way to get a bit of a gauge for and validate what you've just heard and see where you might be within the growth phases. So I've noticed that some of you on your tables were identifying where you were similar and also where you were different. So what's the value of that in this community? What's the value of knowing where your business is at and where the business is at of other people in the community? How do you think that can help you or that you could help them? Share experiences. So if you're ahead of where someone else might be, then you can share, well, this is what I found at that point in time, this is what I did, this is what worked, this is what really helped us. If someone else is representative of where you want to be, then you've got someone to ask some questions of, yeah? And it doesn't matter where you are. Is there any right or wrong place in business? No. It's just about understanding where you are at and therefore what you need to do next to keep you moving towards where you want to be. Cool? Has it helped you kind of identify what the focus of your business should be, what you should be focusing on? Getting some nods? Great. Had you perhaps been thinking that you were going to you're a little bit ahead of where what you were going to do is actually a little bit ahead of where you should be? And maybe to bring it back a little bit. If you nods, cool, awesome. Okay. So now that we've looked at the people side of it, should we go and have a look at the personal side of it? This is where, thank you. This is the bit where everybody wants to shoot me. So if you have a violent nature, just suppress it. So like business, as humans, we're on a particular growth path. Okay, so like we said at the beginning, who you are now compared to who you were 10 years ago or 20 years ago is very different, true? Hopefully. Now, our thinking evolves as we go through life. You're in control of how it evolves. Just like in business, there's no perfect position, there's no clear right or wrong. From an individual perspective, where you are in life, there's no right or wrong. All that matters is where you are serving your outcome. Is that where you want to be? And if it's not, do something about it. If it is, great. Okay? So it's your way of being in the world, achieving the outcome that you want, tick. If it's not, do something different. Is that a really simple formula that everyone could go by? Yeah? Could I make it any more simpler for you, do you think? I can. And it's by helping you understand where you actually sit within your own growth, your thought development, okay? So let's just look at how a human being grows. When you kind of come into the world and you're starting out, or even if you go back over, years and years and years, you go back to caveman days, we all started out with this need to survive. So what does survival actually look like? What would a survival mindset be? Describe that to me. Food. Where am I going to get food from? Hunger. Big frantic, I just want to make sure that I'm surviving. Desperate. Very minimal. Not looking for any kind of extravagance, just trying to keep things really simple and do the bare minimum. Protection of self and from the elements, so shelter. Now for us, do you think we feel that same level of survival as perhaps what people did years and years and years ago, like thousands of years ago? If you're hungry, what do you need to do? Go to the fridge. If you're thirsty, go to the tap. So, and if you need shelter, go into a building, right? It's not that hard. So when you're looking at physical survival, there's not a lot of challenges that we in our society typically face. Not to say that it's not present in other areas of the world, which it clearly is. You just have to turn on the news to find where people are challenged from a survival perspective physically, okay? But for us, it's more mental and emotional survival that we're going through. So think of the stress that you may be feeling or the pressure that you may be under. Technology has been great for creating that in our lives. Kids go into the shower with their iPhone in a plastic bag so that they can keep tweeting. Right? I can't bear the 10 minutes of not being connected to the outside world and knowing what's going on in the world. Wow. Facebook. What was that? Yeah. Who loves Facebook? Yeah? Okay, so a couple of you. Who hates it? Yeah, could take or leave it. Do you know, in relation to Facebook and some of the social media, we're the most connected that we have ever been because of technology. But we're the most lonely, we're the most depressed, and we're the most stressed that we've ever been. So I might have 1,000 friends on Facebook, but I can guarantee you there would be some people that I could walk down the street that are supposedly my friend on Facebook that I wouldn't even recognise. True? So there's this, we're constantly surrounded by, because of the way technology's evolved and the way that we've got such access to media all the time, it is absolutely fantastic from one perspective, but it can be the worst evil from the other. There's constant reminders of how you should be, what you should be doing, how you should look, what you should be thinking, where you should be living, what you should be driving, what you should be wearing, what you should be, what your political views should be, what your religious views should be, what's right, what's wrong. Take any topic, take health and fitness. This is a pet peeve of mine, but you take health and fitness. For every time they say drink a green drink, there's an article somewhere on the internet telling you to eat the green drink. Right? Red wine's good for you, red wine's bad for you. Chocolate's good for you, chocolate's bad for you. Coffee's good for you, coffee's bad for you. How do you possibly make a decision? So because of the way our society is, our survival way of thinking is really on a mental and emotional level. For some people, getting through the day is very hard. It is a challenge, a legitimate mental or emotional challenge. For some people, the concept of time is just getting to the end of the week, or they can only think to the next holiday. They can't possibly think 20 years from now. Okay? So if you're sitting there going, oh, that's interesting, I can think, I've got a very clear picture of where I want to be 20 years, that's great for you, but it's not necessarily the case for everybody else. So when you're looking at your team, if you're asking them to buy into a vision that's 5 years out, and they can't think beyond the end of the week, how successful is that buy-in going to go? Okay? So just understanding where you are and where people will be along this journey helps you identify how you should be communicating things within your business to them so that it's relevant, because the key person that people are interested in is who? Themselves. There's no interest like self-interest. And everybody's always asking, what's in it for me? So when you're doing something in business, you want to change something up, that's fine. Just answer me this one question, what's in it for me? What's the impact to me? What does this mean for me? It's the first thing that comes into their head. So understand where they're at. So in survival mode, your thinking is automatic, it's instinctive, it's very reactive, and you're focusing on just taking care of immediate needs. So problem, fix it. Next problem, fix it. Not looking at problem, let's look at how we resolve it, so that we've always got a way of resolving it in the future. Just, there's a problem, let me fix it, move on. Okay? The next phase from there, and this swings like a pendulum, hence the word pendulum in values pendulum. Okay? So we swing like a pendulum. In survival mode, we're very I-focused, so it's all about me. When I move out of that phase, I'm moving into more of a we focus, so I'm going into connection mode. So going back to caveman days, if I want to survive, I had to knock down take out a buffalo. Did they have buffalo back then? I don't know. I didn't live in caveman days. A what? A mammoth. Okay, so you had to whack down a mammoth, right? Pretty soon they realised that if I had like a bunch of guys whacking down a herd of mammoths, our chances of survival increase. So if I'm connected with other people, if I belong somewhere, my chances of survival, whatever that is for you, increases. That's why we like coming to things like this. This is your community. This is a place where you know that you belong. This is a place where you know that if you've got certain challenges, certain problems, there's bound to be at least one other person in this room that has that problem or that challenge at this point in time. And it's nice and safe and comfortable knowing that, because you know that you're not alone. Now, in this way of thinking in this growth phase, thinking tends to be quite traditional. So it's very easy it's very much the same. I do this because we've always done it that way. I just want to maintain the status quo. I want to create a safe, calm environment for everyone. Where I'm listening for language in business leaders, where I hear a business leader say, I've created a family-like environment for my team, they're coming from a connection way of thinking. I've created a space where everyone can belong, where everyone's safe. Okay? It's great to do because your focus is on relationships. It's on understanding that there's value in connecting with other people. It's great for building affiliates, for networking, for having high-quality, open relationships with people in your team, and for encouraging customers to refer you and to give you feedback. Absolutely critical to develop from a business perspective. Okay? If you stay stuck there, you are building a level of complacency and safety in your team that will, over time, kill your business, because there's no new thought. There's no new ideas. There's no one saying, I'm going to go and try something different. It's just status quo. Just want to do same. I'm very comfortable doing this. Okay? From there, I'm going to swing back to an I-focused, and this is the power phase. This is one of the most difficult phases of growth that we go through, particularly in Australia, because we have a beautiful syndrome called tall poppy. Everyone's heard of tall poppy syndrome? Yes or no? Yeah. So tall poppy, if someone's succeeding really well, we feel the need, for whatever reason, to kind of chop them off. Let's just pull you back to where it's safe. What we're actually saying is, how dare you go and do what I've always wanted to do for myself in my life that I don't have the courage to do. So I'm going to feel a lot more better pulling you back, because then I don't have to address what I should have done, and I'm just going to make myself feel happy by pulling you back. Now, in America, they do the complete opposite. In America, you succeed and everybody champions behind you, don't they? Patting you on the back, saying that you're awesome. Very different culture. And different cultures have different ways of expressing this. So the power phase is you saying, bugger everybody else, I'm going to go and do things my way. Who's had that moment? Who's had that moment where you've gone, bugger what my family thinks. I'm just going to go and do it. To hell with whether you think I've got the knowledge to go and do this, or whether you think I'm credible or I've got the skills. I'm just going to go and do this. I'm going to prove you wrong. I'm going to give this a go. I don't know if it's going to work, but I'm going to go and jump on my mountain, scream from the top and say this is what I want to do. And if you get in my way, I'll metaphorically, not literally, although some people do, but metaphorically, shoot you down. Get out of my way. This is where I'm going. Now, at some point in business, you need to develop that thinking. That's where your resilience comes from. How much of that way of thinking, the power way of thinking, do you think Shelley has? Stacks and buckets and heaps. How many reference points, so moments in time in her life, do you think she's got to draw on that way of thinking? Every time she got in the water, every time she thought about getting in the water, every time a jellyfish stung her. So that way of thinking in Shelley is so ingrained, she just doesn't know how to be any different. True? Am I presupposing a lot here, Shelley, or am I on target? So this will help her, from a business perspective, be very assertive, to know what she stands for, to shout it from the mountain, be very clear on her message, and to keep going out there, to build a level of resilience that you need. This is where mistakes are critical. Who doesn't like making mistakes? You can be honest. Mistakes are how you grow. I actually tell a lot of people, particularly if you don't like making mistakes, keep a mistake log. So on one side, write the mistake that you made. On the other side, write what you learnt from it. And your goal particularly in a team environment, is to be the person that makes the most mistakes. If you're making the most mistakes, you're putting yourself out there more, you're taking more chances, you're taking more risks, you're learning more faster, and you're developing this more assertive, dominant way of thinking. Cool? From there, I'm going to swing back to being a we focus. This is where my thinking is very linear. So now that I've been out there, I've done it my way, I now need to put some structure around how I do it so that other people can do what I do. You see how this just makes simple sense, right? So I need to put some structure around it. So now I'm going to do things in a very linear, very ordered, step-by-step approach. And I'm going to start to think about what's right and what's wrong. So this is where my thinking starts to be what's called absolute. It's either black or it's white, it's right or it's wrong, it's good or it's bad. Think of politics, think of religion. Now think of any conversation you've ever had with anyone where you're having a debate. Are you actually really listening to the other person, or are you just wanting to put your right view across? Are you truly right? So for every right view that you have, that someone else thinks is wrong, and their view they think is right, then aren't we all inherently right and inherently wrong at the same time? Yes? So it's useful to know what you believe to be true, what you believe you have right views around, and what judgments and opinions and beliefs you have that stem from that. But keep it there. The moment you extend that onto other people and you impose that way of being on them, it's the moment you lose them. Because all they're going to do is convince you of their way of being. So you've now got two people convincing each other of their way of being. So in business, when you've got a team that is saying, what's the right way to do it, you want to give them that right way of doing it to build their confidence. And then at some point, the more they ask for what's the right way, that's when you stop answering the question. And you simply say, I don't know. Figure it out. Oh, but I really want to know what to do. I know, figure it out. You've give it a go and tell me what you think works. It's either going to work or it's not. And you change your language from it's either going to be right or it's either going to be wrong to it's either going to work or it's not. And if it doesn't, it's feedback. So have a think about where you might be. Are you wanting to get things right? Do you seek perfection? Will you only take action on something if you know what the answer is going to be? Or that you've got a certainty that this is the outcome that's coming? Do you need to know all the steps before you actually take action? That's starting to give you an indication that that's where you might be. And just say, is that helping the business or is it hindering the business? It's a very simple question to ask. From there, I'm going to swing back to an I. I now know what's right and wrong, but I'm now at the phase where I'm saying, I'm just going to start to test and measure. I'm really not interested in what's the right way or what's the wrong way. I just want to know what are all the ways in which we could get this outcome to identify what the best way is for us and our outcome. So this is where you start to test and measure. So where Greg was talking yesterday about, he mentioned a page, you create like a landing page and then they create it multiple times. Do you remember him saying that? So that you can test different things out. If you heard that and went, did he just speak Japanese? Then that's just telling you we're not ready for that just yet. At the moment, you want to just create a page and know how to execute that page and get a result on that page. But the moment you go, oh, that sounds interesting, I want to know how to do that, that's telling you I'm ready to start exploring, I'm ready to start doing some testing and measuring because your thinking has changed and moved. Okay? From there, I'm going to go back to being more we-focused, and I'm starting to realise that there's so many different ways that something can be done. Everybody has a view, and in fact, I value that diversity. So now you're not looking for commonality, you're looking for people to have different opinions and to find consensus among that to help move you forward. So this is where buy-in can be obtained, is when you value the fact that you actually have diverse thinking in your team and you know how to extract it from them, you know how to encourage them to speak. But here's the clincher, they're not going to speak unless you've helped them develop their power. If it's not safe for them to have an opinion or view what they think, express what they're thinking, you're not going to be able to achieve consensus, affiliation, collaboration in your team. Sound logical? So I know a lot of businesses that say, I want my team to be more collaborative. So the first question I ask is, well, how free are they to make an opinion? How welcoming of arguments, of What's that thing that we're talking about? Conflict, hard conversations. How willing are they to do that? If they're not willing to do that, you can't have collaboration just yet, because this is the growth path. And the final one is such a chaotic way of thinking, a very ambiguous way of thinking. It takes a really long time to actually get there. So this is where you really don't care about anybody else's opinion. You really are very comfortable in your own skin. You do whatever you want to do, think whatever you want to think. You're just so comfortable in your way of being that you don't even see yourself as an entity. You're thinking about things much broader than you. Okay? I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that, because the reality is most people in your business will be between survival and stability. How do I know that? Because that's where the countries in the world are. Look at our own country. Do we have good leaders? Leaders are born at power. So we're suffering, as a country, we're suffering in being a powerful country. So we're suffering in our leadership. So our leaders are not powerful. We're going back to just creating a really safe space. But have we done that really well? Are we embracing of all the cultures in our society? No. So we've got a lot of work to do. So if the country isn't operating at that level, the people within it have to be around that, because that's where the thinking is. Okay? So it sounds great in theory, doesn't it? Okay. So there's, on the next page from where you were, there's some questions again. Just take a moment to answer those questions. This is about you. Answer it as honestly as you can, with an open mind, and you'll get an idea of where your thinking is strong or where you might have some gaps. Whatever three you put down, they're going to be your dominant ways that you're going to think. So they're going to be the ways in which you're going to approach problems in your business, the ways in which you're going to approach relationships. And if you've got more than three, do you want to know what more than three means? If you've got more than three, yeah, then it's essentially saying you're not clear on how you think. You're taking a scattergun approach. So you're trying to think every which way to solve problems. So you're not too sure exactly where you are. You're a bit stuck in your thinking. Okay? Did anyone get a bit of a surprise by doing that? Was everyone kind of happy? It made sense for where you were? You went, oh, that's good. Yeah, it's coming out okay. Anyone kind of go, that's a bit ugly? Same answer this time. Good. Well, it's good in that you're going to tend to approach challenges in a similar way. You're going to think about them the same way. The limitation will be is that you're going to think about it the same way. So there's no one challenging your thinking. So wherever you're similar, where there's a gap for the two of you, find someone that has that thinking so that they can challenge you. Okay? Now the last thing, just turn over the page. The last thing is now just to put, it's on the alignment analyzer, is just to say, well, where did I put my business? What growth phase did I think my business was going through? And what was the three thinking capabilities that I ticked? So it's just a quick tick the box exercise. Did you? Now all you're looking for here is my thinking aligned with where the business is at? Is my thinking ahead of the business? Is it not in the area, it's not surrounding where the business is at? So do I not have the thinking to support the business where it's at? And it starts to give you some perspective of who you might need to engage to help you out. Could be even just through mentoring. Doesn't need to be just informal mentoring. Yeah, there's a lot of great people out there that would love to share their knowledge with you. So it starts to give you an idea as to who you might bring in, who you might engage. Okay? Now, a lot of the things that I do in business is around helping them identify what's going on in their business and what's going on in their people and bringing the two together. So we essentially take, because as I said before, it's a very fluffy area, it essentially take more of a scientific view to it, which is really around who's done science? Who's got a background in science? Is it just me? Am I the only science geek? Awesome. Good. In science, awesome, thanks Shelley. In science you do what? You develop a question. Okay, so you ask yourself a question. So let's put this in business terms. So you might say, how can I hire with greater certainty around their core talents so that I can, have a less impact on my recruitment costs? How can I implement development activities that ensure the team deploys the thinking that I need to take the business where it's going? How can I identify the key talent within my business to ensure that I've got a really strong talent pipeline? How can I develop the thinking in my leaders so that the leaders are best equipped to take the business where it needs to be? So what if there's a question that you have that's people related that's going through your mind? And every business has it, and we work around that key question. Then we do what? We form a hypothesis, which is essentially an if-then. So if thinking capability becomes part of your hiring process, then recruitment costs will decrease. If we have a fluid development program in place, then our retention will increase. If we have business criteria informing talent decisions rather than I like this person and I think they'll be really ace, then our talent pipeline will be strong. If we integrate business and human potential, we can improve productivity, decrease costs, blah, 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 increase revenue. It's a hypothesis. So what do you think we're going to do next? What do you do if you've got a hypothesis? Test it. So to test it, we gather the data. So we go on a data finding mission. We find out what's actually going on in the business, what's actually going on with the people, and we essentially generate scorecards to say, here's a level of alignment between your people and your business. Here's where it's strong, here's where it's a little bit weak. And here's, most importantly, what you can do. Here's a list of options of all the things that you can do so that you know when you're getting consultants in, when you're getting providers in to help you with something, you know why you're doing it and you're making smarter decisions around engaging those people. Cool? And then you evaluate it. So this is, did it work or didn't it? What can we do differently next time? So taking this kind of an approach to your business helps you get out of seeing people as being quite fluffy and needing to just throw something at them, hoping that something will fix the problems that you've got with people, and start to integrate what's going on in your business with who you've actually got in your business to see where it's aligned and where it's not. Cool? Yes or no? So before I go into what the gift is that I've got for everyone, what's been the massive takeaway for you? When you're thinking about what you're going to, because everyone's going back to work on Monday, true? Or is anyone going on a holiday? Oh, yeah, I know. The holiday is a gift. Oh, damn, spoiled it. But you're going back to work on Monday, right? So, yeah, nice. So what are you going to do in relation to people? What have you thought of today that you think, oh, when I go back, I might look at this. I might look at, I want to see if I'm on the same page with them. So you're going to have a chat with your team. So I'm going to have a chat with them. Does anyone go back into their business and share with them what you've learnt here today? Involve them? Get their opinion on it? So Sarah, I'm curious to know, what are you going to go and do? Great. If they're in the same space. Really cool. And identifying if they're in the same space, you can see how you can utilise them to support you with what you're doing, and where they're not, is their difference actually a core strength for you? So can they be great challenges for what you want to do? Yes. What do you do there? Well, first of all, you don't try to make them all a yes. No, you don't try and get them all to be yes. You want to know if they're not there, is that hurting the business? So in them not being there, is that having a negative impact on the business? And if it isn't, it doesn't matter. Their strength is in somewhere else. So if they're not there, where are they? And how do you utilise that strength within your business? Okay? It only becomes a problem if where they're not strong is a huge impact on your business, because it's where you need them to be strong. But if they're not strong and it's not having an impact, don't fix what isn't broken. They don't have to be these well-rounded, completely strong people in every area. Just know where they are strong and deploy that strength. Does that answer your question? Okay, thank you. Good question. Yes?
So as I was saying before, here, we've actually got a general manager and a regional manager, and both the life cycle phase and like we're going to have to find out, I'm going to use both of them and just see whether I fill out both of them and just see whether they are both thinking along the same line.
Yeah. It's a great thing to do. So on that, let me take you through what's in the gift, because there's something that you could just use over and over, okay? So what I've put together that I thought would really help you, there's three things. So when you go there, there's three things. So there's a business data element. So this is a business diagnostic tool. It's online. They just put in their names so that you know who filled it out. And there's a specific email that you put in because there's a report that's generated that will come to me that I can then send to you, okay? So just fill that information in. They go in, they answer some questions, more detailed than what that you filled out here, and it's going to spit back a report that tells you where your business is strong, where it's weak, and where the strong pressure points are. So it's going to give you an idea as to how they're thinking about the business. From there, you can see if they're aligned or not, okay? So if you were planning on doing that, I suggest you use that diagnostic tool because they'll get a report that goes into a lot more detail so they can see where they're aligned. Yeah, and then it will all go through you, so I'll send the reports back to you and then you can have the discussion with them, okay? The other one is looking at human potential. So we talked a lot about the different ways in which you think, and then if you want a different outcome, to change your thinking, yep? So there's a video that I put together that goes through some basic models around that you can apply to yourself to help you shift your thinking. Now, you may not apply all of them. There may just be one that resonates with you more than another. It doesn't really matter, but out of one of those 6 models, you're going to find something in there that you can apply really quickly to shift your thinking in a different way, okay? So that's a video that's in there for you that you can just watch. And the last one is sort of bringing it all together. So if there's challenge that you've got that you just want to bounce it off someone and get an opinion on, then I do have some times available for like a half-hour conversation where we'll go through, you know, your diagnostic, we'll have a look at what's in there. You can talk about, you know, your way of thinking, your approach, the challenges that you've got, and we can do some problem solving around that, okay? So it's half an hour of my time just thrown in there for you if that's what you want to do. So on that page, you just literally go there. Everything's downloadable. There's an online booking form just to schedule in some time with me and the times that I'm free, and we'll just take it from there and see if we can help you more specifically around your particular business, okay? I really want to make this applicable for you. I really want you to be able to go away and change your thinking to get different outcomes in your business. So this is the best way that I thought to do that for you. Is that cool? Okay, so please utilise that as much as you want. And if you want more team members to go through it, just follow the same process. Cool? You're welcome. And the last thing is, if anyone does want an experience of the actual values pendulum profile, which goes into the way that you think, just email me or get my details from Stephen, and we can get that organised for you as well, so that you can get more insight into where your personal blockages may be and how that may be holding you back in business or your life generally. So that's also open to you as well, okay? But I want to say a huge thank you for having me. I know that it's difficult on a Saturday trying to get your head into business and thinking, and this content was quite deep and challenging, wasn't it? So I want to just everyone give yourself a pat on the back. Because I think you've done awesomely to be here on a Saturday and thinking really hard about your business, perhaps in new and different ways that you hadn't thought of before. And I want to thank you for engaging too, because it's better that you engage rather than I just stand there chatting at you for 3 hours. So thank you so much for having me. Thank you for having me, Stephen, and I hope that this helps you out. And if you need me for anything else, you know how to contact me. Cool? But thank you.
Right. Beautiful.